have a few things I want to get done this week in the kitchen, so I'm taking you along with me. I literally just took this off the heat. It took way longer than I thought it would, and that was just to get it down to 4 cups. I will put my garlic in. I'm a little concerned about how much bacon fat is still left in here, so I might actually pull a little bit more out and then put the garlic in. Welcome back, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden homesteader, and I have a few things I want to get accomplished, and one of them is going to be onion jam. I have been wanting to try this for so long, so now I am finally going to do it. I have a whole bunch of onions that I need to deal with. I've also got some potatoes, so hopefully I can get to some potato soup. That would be really nice. And I know I said there was going to be some pumpkin bread coming soon, but, well, we found some Lay's ketchup chips in the store, and if you know, you know. If you don't, go buy some of those and give them a try. They're really good. So we have a few more than we probably needed, so we're going to hold off on the pumpkin bread for now and get going on some other things. So I am making some onion jam. This has been on my to-do list for a very long time, and I'm finally getting to it. It's also something really nice that you can do in the winter because, you know, it doesn't matter if you're heating up the house or not. I guess the issue would be if you're stinking up the house. This might make it smell rather oniony for a little while, but I'm willing to deal with the consequences of my actions. I don't know about the rest of the family, but anyways. I am going to, normally when I make caramelized onions, I just do the pole to pole, and that's it. You could do rings if you want, but I've heard that sometimes they break down a bit more. I'm actually going to do small pieces because the way I've seen people using this, it's more like a condiment, and so kind of wanted some smaller pieces just to make it easier to spread. And I don't know if you've ever sort of bitten into a long string of onion and pulled like the whole onion out. Well, I'd rather just avoid doing that, so I am going to cut it into smaller pieces and I hope that works out for me. Some of these, this top skin is a little loose. So we also recently went out, so this is actually from a 50-pound bag of onions that we had bought recently, probably about a month and a half ago. That's recently in my mind. And we literally just bought a 50-pound bag of potatoes because the price was actually reasonable, and so we decided to go for it. But we don't use a lot of potatoes, so I will probably be, I would like to freeze dry some mashed potatoes, see how that goes. And I would also like to try making some potato soup that I can and see how that goes. So it's going to be a couple of convenience meals. Now the recipe I'm following, I can't remember, I will link it, I will definitely link it, but I can't remember whose, some homestead on the ranch or something. So I'm following that one. It calls for 4 pounds of onions, which I did weigh my onions. I will be topping and tailing them, so obviously I'll lose a little bit of weight because of that. It did call for 4 tablespoons of olive oil in the biggest pan I have, which is my, I think this is a 12-inch cast iron. So I will get these going as I chop them. Now a little fuzzy on the instructions because it says caramelized onion, but then it also says to only cook them for 10 to 15 minutes until golden. That's not really caramelized onions in my book. Caramelized onions tend to take about 45 minutes, but it does also say to cook it in the balsamic vinegar for like 45 minutes, so maybe that compensates for the cooking process. I'm not sure. So we will see. I can't peel the thin skin off, but I hate to waste that thick skin. And this recipe should make about 3 to 4 half pints, which in my opinion is probably a good amount. It's a small batch, and it's a good amount for trying something new. I hate to, you know, I hate doing those ones where it's like, oh, it makes 20 jars and you don't like it. So this way I can kind of give it a try. And if I don't like it, I only have to suffer for 3 or 4 jars. If I do like it, well, I know how to make more at that point. So Although if I keep doing things with balsamic vinegar, I'm going to have to go get some more. Like, I almost never use balsamic vinegar, and in the last 2 months, I've practically drained the bottle that I've had in there for like years. I have to get a wooden spoon to stir more onion cutting. Boy, my eyes aren't watering yet, but my nose is certainly going crazy. Now, something else that might be worth making, since I do have a bunch of onions that I really don't want going bad, I had thought about making some French onion soup, but I need to look into other ways to use it because I don't normally just sit there and eat French onion soup. So if that's something that I can add to a meal I already make, then it's probably worth making some, but because I do occasionally use the French onion soup mix, which I make my own, but I don't really use like canned French onion soup or anything like that, so I'm not sure that that is going to be a useful pantry item to have. If you use French onion soup, or if you can it yourself and you have good uses for it, let me know below so that I can see if it's something that I can add to my pantry. Otherwise, hopefully this will work out for me and I can just make more of this. So this is not even all of the onion, but as I add it and stir it and cook it down, it will lose volume. I will continue cutting up some onions. I just want to make sure that the ones on the bottom are not burning. When you burn one, they kind of all get that slightly burnt smell, taste, flavor. Ugh. Okay, that is all of the onions. So, just needs to truck along for about 10-15 minutes, and then we will see where we are at. Okay, it's about 10 minutes in. They are browning, but I think I want to go more for this color here, where they've got a little bit more color to it. So I will definitely give it the 5 extra minutes and see where that brings me, but I do need to take into account that some of these are at a different stage than others, so it could actually take a little longer since I put them all in at different times. I will just keep monitoring it and see how it goes. Now, I did start this on medium-high, which the recipe calls for, but I've slowly been turning it down because things do continue getting hotter and hotter, so I've just been sort of turning it down to maintain the temperature, especially since this is cast iron, it just holds the heat. So we will see how it goes. Now I'm going to move on to something else while this is cooking. I have a little bit of turkey gravy, a little bit of turkey, and some roasted carrots that didn't soften in the oven. So I'm going to add in, I've got a small sweet potato, I'm going to just cook that up, throw it all together, and turn it into a small soup. And that'll probably be part of my lunch. I have some rolls as well. I've been making rolls lately, so you'll have to keep an eye out for that video. It'll probably be in about 2 weeks, and you'll understand why I'm making a ton of rolls. Okay, soup is done. I'm going to sit down and enjoy this. I only added a little water just to thin the gravy. It smells good. I also put in a few dehydrated onions just to give it a little onion flavor. But that's pretty much it. Simple. And cleans the fridge out. Okay, I think I'm going to call the onions done. They did take a little bit more than 15 minutes, but not much, so I am okay with that. I am actually going to do the rest of this in a pot because I don't know how the seasoning is on your cast iron, but I feel like I have struggled for years to get it to finally be solid, and I'm not going to mess it up by boiling something acidic in it for 45 plus minutes. So I am going to move everything to this pot, but I will need a 1.5 cups of sugar and a 1.5 cups of balsamic vinegar. Boil that for 45 plus minutes. It does say you could do it for longer if you want it to be thicker and jammier. So we will see how it looks at 45 minutes and decide at that point if it's worth going for longer. So this might be slow. Oh, apparently it's going to be messy too. My goodness. I almost finished that off. I'll get the onions in here and back on the burner. Alright, so the fun part will be, I'm just going to use a spoon, transfer this over. The pan is hot, so I don't want to touch it any more than necessary. I guess that didn't matter. Okay, well I will get the rest of those in there. I'm just going to need an oven mitt. Probably some extra strength. The pan is heavy. There we go. Well, that's going to be a fun cleanup. So that is approximately what it looks like. So it's just a matter of bringing this up to a simmer and letting it go for about 45 minutes. I literally just took this off the heat. It took way longer than I thought it would, and that was just to get it down to 4 cups. This says it makes 3 to 4 pints, half pints. So yeah, that was a lot of reducing. So it calls for 2 teaspoons of, it's a sea salt. I'm using kosher salt. This is the only deviation I am making. Well, I'm making 2 deviations. The other one is, it does call for like thyme or rosemary or herbs like that, and I get the feeling I wouldn't like that, so I'm skipping it. But I am going to put in the salt and pepper. I'm putting in the salt I have, putting in the pepper I have. My jars are on the burner, warming up. They've actually been warming for a little while. So I'm going to get this well incorporated. I don't want any salty spots or peppery spots. So like I said, I was able to reduce this down to 4 cups. It hit a point where the sound of the bubbles actually changed. And it was like boiling a lot harder, but smaller bubbles. And at that point, it seemed like it was starting to stick to the bottom a lot. You know, like it was starting to stick to the bottom. But so far, it has not stuck, and it has not burnt or done any of that. So I think we're at the right point to start getting this into jars. This is a water bath canning recipe, so I am going to get a water bath going. So that is a 1/4 inch headspace on the jars. I'm using these squat ones because I don't have to put as much water in the pot. Although I am hoping that I can fill it up and use just 4 jars. Now I'm not sure how I feel about how this is going to taste because it has a bit of a strong smell to it. It's hard to describe. It's very, very vinegary, but not in a good way. I'm sure it's the balsamic vinegar aspect to it. So, let's see, I think that is a 1/4 inch. I'm going to get a rag so I can wipe the tops. My pot is hot. Okay, I'm going to show you what I did. I'm just using a smaller pot here, and I have some rings in the bottom so that the jar sits up off the bottom. So this will keep them from breaking, and then I will make sure there is enough. I'm sure there will be enough water once I empty the jars and put them in full. So it is a matter of lather, rinse, repeat. It is starting to thicken as it's been sitting here cooling a little, so that's promising. So it's kind of, I saw another one that actually calls for pectin, and I didn't want to make that one. I felt like the pectin would give it an odd texture, so I really wanted to try one without pectin, and I found this one. So I'm hoping that this will be what I'm looking for, kind of like a caramelized onion condiment. Let me get this one on next, because I will probably open this one unless I get one of those ones doesn't seal. I will open this one. Okay. This will require 10 minutes of processing time. There is a altitude adjustment, so obviously make sure that if you are at a lower or at a higher elevation that you check what that is. I'm not sure if that's too much or not enough. That might be all she wrote for this one. That looks a little full. This maybe I will have a little bit in the fridge to test later. Yeah, there we go. That looks like a 1/4 inch. Let's get that cleaned up. Definitely dripped on that one. Okay, so it's 10 minutes for me, and I will continue on with the video. I've got a few other things I need to do, and I will show you how this looks later. So I want to show you guys something pretty interesting, or what I thought was interesting. I didn't know this happened. This is my cilantro. I want to show you guys something interesting that I had never known before, but this is my parsley, and it is still like really bright green and still, well, it's probably not growing, but it still looks really nice. I've been sort of, this one not so badly, but some of the other ones I have been pulling some of the greens off of it and giving it to the chickens. So they have been appreciating the green stuff. We are expecting a really, I don't know that it's going to be a cold snap per se. Chickens are doing good, but it's going to get colder. And then we're expecting snow on Friday, so I guess we'll see how that's going. But let's see if I got my other, haha. So I need 3 more eggs. I got 2 this morning, and there we go, 3 eggs. So one of those, that one there, the light colored one, is the ceramic one. And over here, I have somebody who lays the same color egg as my ceramic egg, so it's fun. But anyways, I gotta get these inside and with the rest of them. Now that the onions are pretty much done, I am going to move on to potato soup. I will not subject you to me peeling 16 cups worth of potatoes, but suffice it to say, I need to have 16-ish cups of potato. I don't know how exact that needs to be because, like, how do you exactly measure something that's cubed? So anyways, I will go through, I'm going to peel up a bunch, and then I will dice them up into small, I'm going to go for approximately 1-inch dice, so that it's, you know, if I want to eat it whole, I can eat it whole. If I want to mash it up, it's easy to mash it up. So pretty much it's sort of a multi-purpose product. Now, I am making the bacon version of this that I found. That sounded really good, but there is a ham version. If you want me to make the ham version, I think it is slightly different. I can do that. I do have a, I would not be putting in pieces of ham. I would just be using a ham stock. So I have a ham bone in my freezer that has been sitting there for probably way too long. I would just turn that into a nice stock and use that instead of the chicken stock that this one calls for. They are slightly different recipes, so they probably have slightly different flavor profiles as well, which would be nice to have, you know, something different on the shelf. But if you want to see that, I can definitely do that. Otherwise, I probably won't do that right away. I have a bowl here of water, so I will dice up and measure my cuppage, and then I'm going to put them in the water just to prevent browning. But I want to peel at least, you know, at least 2 before I start actually dicing them up, because, you know, I gotta switch knives, I gotta pull out a cutting board, stuff. I don't have a lot of space here. Ideally it would be nice if I could just peel them all up, but I mean, I guess I could do that. Just put that in the water. Haha, there we go. I'm just going to peel up a bunch and then hope I don't go over 16. But like I said, I will make sure I speed through this, and you can see how I'm dicing this up as well, what size I'm going for. In the end, with some of these recipes, you do have a lot of wiggle room for how you want to do things. You know, if you want a larger dice, I think you can do a larger dice. In the end, you could probably dice it as large as you are allowed to for preserving potatoes, just potatoes in a jar. Because all this is their standard soup recipe with a few extra ingredients. We went out and bought a 50-pound bag of potatoes, so I am finding ways to go through it. We're not big potato eaters, so I don't want the bag sitting around. We do have it in the garage where it is cooler, so I'm hoping it will last a bit longer than it would if I brought it up to the kitchen where it's warmer, but we shall see. I was also planning on freeze-drying some mashed potatoes. My husband likes to have cheese potatoes, so I'll be making up a batch of that, which doesn't use up that many potatoes, but it's nice to have these big ones because then I'd only have to cut up a couple of them to get the nice big slices. I only brought up 6 potatoes, so I was kind of hoping that given their size, I would be able to do 16 cups with 16 potatoes, or with 6 potatoes. I do not use a potato peeler to peel my potatoes, oddly enough, or a vegetable peeler, whatever you like to call them. We always called it a potato peeler, even though we never peeled potatoes with it. This is how I learned how to peel potatoes, just to use a knife. I know it wastes a bit more of the potato flesh because, you know, you pull off a bit more, but I did potatoes with a vegetable peeler one time because I had to do a lot of them and I thought it would go faster. I broke almost every single nail on my left hand because it kept catching my nails every time I made a pass. So finally I just gave up on it because it was downright dangerous. And it's uncomfortable pulling the vegetable peeler towards me because that's not what I'm used to. Used to peeling carrots and pushing it away. Yeah, I'm going to take a chance and peel this last potato, and then I'm going to clear all this out of the way and start. That's about what size I'm going for. Yeah, well, that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing for the next little while. I will obviously need to get more potatoes because that was 4 cups. I don't think I've got 3 more quarts in here. So yeah, I will bring it back when I'm working on the next vegetable. Well, that took 9 potatoes, in case you were wondering. The next vegetables will be garlic, of which I still have some, celery, which I have a lot of, so this will be a good use for it, and an onion. Now, the celery was very specific, called for half a cup. It also called for a cup of bell pepper, which I thought was really weird, so I am actually going to use a cup of celery to replace the bell pepper. I don't know if I should use a cup and a half. Don't want to push it. And then it just called for 1 onion, which is weird because I bought like a 50-pounder of onions. Some of my onions are massive. Some of them are medium sized and some of them are like, I don't want to say they're tiny, but compared to the massive ones, they look small. So anyways, 1 onion is not very specific in my books, but we're going for it. Now I am going to get these washed because there is always a little bit of dirt down in the bottom here. So I'm going to get those washed up. I did clean up my cutting board and my knife, as well as rinsed the cup here because I wanted to get rid of, obviously I want to get rid of the sand that the potatoes have on them, but I wanted to get rid of some of the extra starch as well. So I believe it said a fine dice or a medium dice, so I am just going with that. With this chopping tool I should probably try one of these days, see how that works. Anyways, today is not that day. Let's just get this over and done with. Okay, well 3 stalks get you just slightly more than a cup. If you're going to put in the bell pepper, obviously put in half a cup of the celery. But if you're skipping the bell pepper like I am, I think it's okay to make it up with the celery. Well, that is a nice potent onion. Whew! If you leave the root end on, it does make it easier to do a fine dice, unlike what I did. Now I will need to brown up some bacon and then cook all these vegetables. That's why I haven't started anything. I should probably have technically done the bacon first and then had that ready to go while I was cutting this stuff. It would have saved time. But I was going to use the same knife, and you don't cut meat and then vegetables. So I am doing all my vegetables first and then I am doing the meat. Just so that I'm only messing up 1 knife instead of 2, even though I have to mess up another cutting board. Okay, that is that. I'm going to wipe my hands because I got onion bits. Then I'm going to get to the garlic, which should be fun. 6 cloves of garlic. Oh my goodness, my garlic is sprouting. This is why I don't keep fresh garlic in the house. Just don't use it fast enough. Go for big ones. If you're going to do garlic, do garlic. Okay, well that is 6 massive cloves of garlic. Okay, well that's good enough for my tastes. I'm going to save these on the cutting board because when I do my celery and onions, I don't want to put the garlic in right away because I don't want it accidentally burning. So I will put that in towards the end. So I'm going to set this off to the side and I will do a quick cleanup and get the bacon. I have my bacon. This was a 16-ounce package. I actually set aside 3, I think it was 3 rashers, and hopefully this is just 12 ounces, you know, give or take. So the instructions say to use scissors and cut it up into 1-inch pieces. I am not using scissors. I'm just going to use the knife and go with the, probably slightly smaller than that, 3/4 of an inch-ish. And then once this is all cut up, I need to brown it in the pan. Okay, quick cleanup and then on to browning some bacon. I will be doing everything in this large stock pot. That will be browning the bacon and cooking it all the way through, and then I will remove it from the pot and set it aside. In the grease that remains, I will be cooking up the onion, celery, and once that's translucent, which should take about 8 to 10 minutes, I will put the garlic in and give that another minute or so. Finally, I will add in the potatoes, the bone broth. I don't have chives, I'll figure something out. Bacon and spices, and I will let that simmer for 15 minutes until the potatoes start to break down a little bit. And at that point, I can put it in the canner. So let's get the garlic in there. Now my heat is not very high, but this has been on the heat for a while, so I do need to keep a close eye on this. Nothing worse than burnt garlic. So we just want to keep this to a gentle cook. Ooh, nothing like fresh garlic. That smells so good. So in total, I took out about half a cup of bacon fat, just in case you are wondering. Okay, here goes the potatoes. I tried to wash those super well. Have some chicken stock, if I can get into it. Just for the record, this doesn't work very well with this kind of lid, but it is possible to get it open. Okay, so I need calls for 6 cups plus a cup of water. I'm going to put in 2 quarts of the stock. There is some stuff on the bottom. It helps to mix it up first. This is still chicken stock, it's just a darker one. There's that. Okay, calls for 1 teaspoon of paprika. I was going to put in smoked paprika, but I'm a little leery of what that might do flavor-wise. It might be overpowering. So I'm going to stick with the recipe and do what it says, because the bacon will add a smokiness to it, but I don't want to add too much. And it does call for a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. I don't know how hot my cayenne is anymore, because it has been sitting around for a while. But we will put a little bit in. Now it does call for dried sage. I'm sure I have some, I don't know where it is, and I'm not 100% sure I would like that flavor profile in my potato soup. So I'm actually going to omit the sage, and I will probably try it with 1 jar. I'll just open it up and, you know, add in a little pinch of sage or whatever and see if I like the flavor profile. And if I do, I can always add it next time. But if I don't, well, I have saved myself from a lot of soup that I would have not liked eating. Okay, in goes the bacon. It says to bring this up to a boil, and it says to cook for 15 minutes, but it doesn't say to leave it on a boil or bring it to a simmer. I'm going to kind of find that in-between spot and get it cooked. It does say until the potatoes start falling apart a little. There we go. So I think in future I would plan on using a lighter stock, because I would add cream and cheese to this to make it a loaded baked potato soup. The dark stock might make it look a little funny with the cream, but this is what I had, so that's what I'm using. So I'm going to let this simmer away, and then I will come back and show you what it looks like when it's all done. I let this simmer a little longer than probably necessary, but I did have it on a lower temperature. I do see that some of the potatoes are starting to break apart a little bit, so I called that the done stage. I went and tasted this because I wanted to make sure it had enough salt in it. I could always add pepper later, and I can always add salt later, honestly, but I kind of want to adjust it a little bit now while I've got this big huge batch. That way I don't have to remember to do each jar. I did taste this. It does have enough salt in it because I forgot to account for the saltiness of the bacon, so I didn't have to worry about the salt. I do want to put in a little more pepper because I did feel like half a teaspoon of pepper was not very much. So I'm going to put in another half teaspoon of pepper, and I'm going to call that done, because if I want more pepper at that point, I will just add more pepper. I do have pepper sitting on the table, so when I'm eating, it's easy to grab. But that is that. So I have had this on low for just a little bit. My jars have been heating in the water, in the pressure canner, and this has just been on low just because I was eating lunch. But I am going to now turn this off, bring it over to my canning station, which is not very far away. And I got all my stuff. So I am going to do this in quart jars. I hope I'm not going to regret this because I think I'm the only one who's going to eat this. But my plan for this was to actually add in some cheese and some cream or whatever I had in the fridge. If I had sour cream, I could add some of that in, but just to turn it into an actual loaded baked potato soup. But by adding more things, it will create more volume. Now, the fun part in canning something chunky like this is to try to make sure you are getting an even amount of chunks and liquid. Because I don't want to end up with too many chunks at the end, neither do I want to end up with something that does not have enough chunks at the end. And this is pressure canning, so it will require a 1-inch headspace. I have been finding, and I'm not sure why, but my jars have been, some of them have been siphoning a little bit, and I did get an electric canner recently. And I can't tell if I'm doing something wrong with the electric canner or if it just heats up too fast. So lately I have been giving slightly more than 1-inch headspace, and I think that's been working better. So I flicked some up on the lip. Okay. There we go. Like maybe I'm putting my lid on too tight? I don't know. I'm not doing anything different except using an electric canner, so. Well, how's that for just about perfect? It says it made 5 quarts. I got 5 quarts. Now, the changes I made to this recipe. I added in the 6, instead of using 6 cups of chicken stock, I used 8. But it does call for 1 cup of water with some clear gel in it, or, you know, the cook type gel. I decided not to put that in because I figure I could do more things with this the way it is. So those are the changes I made, and so in the end I probably had 1 extra cup of liquid, but when I simmered it I did lose some of that liquid. But it made 5 quarts, so almost perfect, just perfect. Okay, so that will go in for 90 minutes because I am doing quarts. It will go in for 75 minutes if you do pints. So you just have to check your altitude to find out what pounds of pressure you need to use to make sure you are using the right pounds there. So I will show you how it turns out when it's done. And for the canning updates, this is the potato soup. It is a very unappetizing shade of brown, but it tasted really good, so I'm not too concerned about how it looks. I am more concerned about how it tastes. Now I did have one that I think has a weak seal on it. It did seal, but it sounds a little different, so I'll probably keep that one upstairs and try to eat that one in the near future. And then the onion balsamic jam, I don't know if you can see this, it's set really well. So, and it smells pretty good. It does have a sweet smell to it, obviously, because it's got like a ton of sugar in it, but it does have that vinegary tang smell to it as well. So I'm looking forward to giving that a try. I did have, this is a 4-ounce jar, and I really didn't get very much, you know, like, it looks like I only got like 1 ounce, slightly more. So I'll be giving that a try, hopefully soon, but I just haven't had a reason to put it on anything, so we'll see, get that tried. But I got 5 of these and a little taste at the end, so it was perfect, and I'm looking forward to actually having these on the pantry shelf, and if they turn out really well, like I really enjoy it, I'll probably try to make more because it's a good way to use up some potatoes. That used up a lot more potatoes than I thought it would. And on to the garden update. The celery is growing insane. So I have taken off a few of the branches at the bottom because they have been yellowing. So this is kind of an example. Yeah, focus. My goodness. Okay, so there's one back there. You can see the leaf is starting to change yellow a little bit. Back there's another one. And then I do have a little bit of crunchiness in here, so I'm not sure if I need to give it more food or not, but this thing, my goodness, it is a water hog. It also needs to get fed today. Yeah, there's like no water in there. So I have the first 2 sections up to their tallest right now, so I got 1 more section to go, and, you know, maybe 6 more inches, not quite. This is doing really well. This is the first time I have seen this brown crunchy bit there, so I'll have to keep an eye on that. I was going to give it a little more food today, so I'm going to have to be careful on how much food I give it, just in case. Because I'm getting a little bit of crunchiness around the edges, but the leaves are also changing color a little bit, so that tells me it might not be getting enough. Over here, I harvested some more. I've been trying to keep my harvest slightly to a minimum, but there's a lot of crunchy leaves, so I don't know. This one's like growing at an angle almost, but it's just, I don't know what to make of it. It's like I don't normally have problems this bad, especially with a fan on, so I don't know if I'm just not giving it enough food or what's going on. So on some of them, like this one, it's just the bottom leaves. On this one, it's the interior leaves, but you're like, what's going on? This thing is just weird. This one's looking good. Yeah, I have been harvesting from this one, so I don't know if that's what's causing it to do this, but I just probably need to take it out and start again. Cilantro, still upstairs. The lettuce up here is, I don't know, it's like turning into heads, so I've just kind of been letting it go and trucking along. I took a couple of leaves off on the bottom just because they looked a little, like, really bad, but see, this one looks really bad here. But I don't know, I'm just going to let these ones truck along. I might try giving them a little more food and see if that helps, but I don't know what's gonna help with these. I guess since they're slightly inedible right now, I might as well just give them more food, and if it ends up killing them or burning them worse, then I haven't lost anything. I can just give them to the chickens, but it's kind of a disappointment. So right now I just have the frizzy lettuce that's down on this shelf, and I did break down and buy some lettuce at the store because it was an okay price, so I am at least getting salads and stuff going, but it's just annoying. I feel like every time I think I have, like, the key, I do something different, or I plant a different variety, and it's just, nope, doesn't work. So this cilantro is doing really well. I do have, so there's a little bit of crunchiness that's been developing on a couple of the leaves, but it hasn't been bad. I do still have discoloration on the leaves, so I might try giving this a little more food. I don't remember how much the reservoir holds, and so I might be underfeeding it, and that might explain some of these leaves. I do have more cilantro started in cotton wool for the Aerogarden downstairs, so hopefully those will start sprouting soon. The bell pepper is growing insane again. I've got one branch dropping down here off to the side. I picked a bunch of peppers because they were starting to go soft, but there's still lots of peppers hiding in there. There's lots of red ones, quite a few green ones going on, so flowers. And then the tomato plant, I did finally prune it, but I do have some fruit showing up, and I am a little concerned that this is not the variety I wanted, especially since it is growing out of control. But I don't know if you can see this, there's some yellow leaves in the back, and there's been some crunchy leaves. I've been slowly pulling off yellow ones and crunchy ones as I find them, but I do think it might need more food. And then on another note, there was, I don't know if I can find it, right here, there's a tiny little lemon trying to grow, so that's going to have to get pulled off, as are all the rest of the flowers. So it's a bit sad, but it's just got to be done for the health of the plant. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. I will have some videos up at the end that you might enjoy, and I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.